We'll start the review of the digestive organs with the mouth. So the mouth is also called the oral cavity. Sometimes it's called the buccal cavity. Is where we get the word buccal. Um, it's the space that's bounded by your lips in the front, your cheeks to the side, the palate, hard and soft palate to the top, and the tongue to the bottom. We call the opening to the outside anteriorly the oral orifice, and then it opens back into the pharynx. It has a stratified squamous epithelium because what we put in there tends to be abrasive. It can be hot or cold or rough. So we need a protective layer here. Not very much absorption takes place in the mouth, so we don't really need a simple epithelium. So it looks like this in cross section. This area right here is considered the mouth. Now, as you probably noticed, your lips and your cheeks happen outside of your gums, outside of your teeth, and we call the area between the cheek and gums, or between the lips and gums, the vestibule. So it's external to that. It's really not considered part of the oral cavity. I mean, it can be argued that it is, but it's easiest just to call it the vestibule. The oral cavity itself is the area inside the gums. Now, a frenulum is where things attach. So the labia are the lips. So the labial frenulum is the attachment of the lips to the gum, kind of all along there. It's here. This is called the superior labial frenulum, and this is the inferior labial frenulum. The one under the tongue is called the lingual frenulum. Lingual means teeth. So this area here is considered the vestibule. This area in here is considered the oral cavity. Yeah, kind of leave it like that. The lips, by the way, are not the bit that you put lipstick on. That's called the red margin of the lips. The lips go all the way down to where the vestibule ends. So it's that whole piece of flesh. The palate is made up of two parts, the hard palate and the soft palate. The hard palate has the palatine bones and the maxilla bones in it. It has some ridges in it, so that you can work food with your tongue against it and roll food into little balls called bolus, right? And behind that is something called the soft palate, and it's skeletal muscle, and it has a couple of functions. One of the things, it closes off the nasopharynx when you're swallowing, and the uvula is the bit that hangs down. So the uvula is this bit here. It's considered part of the soft palate. The tongue is initiates swallowing. It's what actually allows us to form words. So it's very important in speech, and that's why the tongue, which is lingus, is where we get the word language, like to be able to speak. But it's also used to reposition food, mix food, push food in between the teeth during chewing, and it rolls food up into swallowable little balls, the bolus. Now, there's two types of muscles that are found in the tongue. There are intrinsic muscles and extrinsic muscles. The intrinsic muscles change the shape of the tongue. Some people can't roll their tongues into like the hot dog roll. Other people can. Some people can actually make their tongues go like kind of like a clover leaf, like a three leaves, because they have these intrinsic muscles. But it is just skeletal muscle. It starts in the tongue and ends in the tongue and changes the shape of the tongue. The extrinsic muscles are the ones that are actually attached to the hyoid bone and kind of the floor of the mouth, and they are used to protrude the tongue and retrude the tongue. So they alter the position. They move it side to side. And this is all held in place by the lingual frenulum. Sometimes little kids have got too much lingual frenulum and they don't get to move their tongue enough, and so they're what's called tongue-tied, and and they have trouble speaking often, articulating words. So on the surface of the tongue, we have these little bumps called papillae. Now, some people call them the taste buds. There are not all of them are actually for taste, though. So the names actually make perfect sense. There's one type that actually have a hard keratin in them, and they're called the filiform, and they give the tongue a file texture. Like it's for rasping. It gives the tongue roughness. It provides friction on the tongue. Anybody who's ever been around a cat knows that cats have a much more developed filiform papillae on their tongues. That's what that roughness is for. We use the filiform to actually help with mechanical digestion, to roll the food into a bolus. Now, the other ones are more for taste. There's ones that look like little mushrooms. They're called fungiform. They're scattered all over the tongue, and they're the general taste buds, as it were. There are ones that are the valate ones, or the circumvallate, but I prefer the term valate, and they're V-shaped, and they're found at the back of the tongue, and they actually have taste buds in them as well. And then on the side of the tongue, there are papillae that look like leaves, and they're called foliate, as in foliage, and they're found on the side of the tongue, and they're involved with taste as well, especially bitter taste, I believe. So that your tongue ends up looking like this. The fungiform are like little mushrooms scattered all over the tongue. The filiform give the tongue the roughness. On the lateral sides of the tongue are the folate, and then the valate ones are here. Back at the base of the tongue is the lingual tonsils. So this is lymphatic tissue that's found deep in the tongue. Now, this part of the tongue you don't normally see unless you're looking down specifically. We won't get into the different tastes that can happen from the tongue at this point. Another accessory organ that's very important to the mouth are the salivary glands. Now, there are some intrinsic salivary glands, and there are some extrinsic salivary glands. The extrinsic salivary glands are found outside of the buccal cavity, and they have ductwork that carries the saliva into the buccal or oral cavity. And they have names. So the ones beside the ears are parotid, meaning beside the ears. The ones that are underneath your mandible, your lower jaw, are submandibular. The ones underneath your tongue are the sublingual. Uh, and these produce the majority of the saliva. The intrinsic ones are all through the oral mucosa, and they basically produce enough saliva to keep your mouth wet. They're responsible more for that. So the saliva is what's secreted by these, and they have a number of functions. One of the functions is cleaning the mouth and keeping the mouth clean. There's various things in the saliva that help with that. There's lysozymes and different things that help. There are the saliva also moistens and dissolves the food chemicals. Dissolving the food chemicals makes them either A, absorbable, or B, taste. They facilitate taste. You can't taste anything if it's dry. You also can't swallow things unless it's moist. So a lot of creating the bolus, making something swallowable, is to moisten and make sure that it's soft enough to swallow, and saliva is important for that. You probably have heard of the cracker challenge. You can't eat 7 crackers in under a minute because you can't produce enough saliva to actually moisten them to swallow. Now, the other thing that people may be surprised to find out is that saliva also has an enzyme in it called amylase. And amylase breaks down complex carbohydrates, starches, into simpler sugars. If you take a cracker and you chew it and you hold it in your mouth, you mix it all up with saliva and you hold it in your mouth without swallowing it, very soon it starts to taste sweet because the starches in that cracker start getting broken down and they become sugars. So it's called salivary amylase. And it's an important thing. It's the only nutrient that chemical digestion starts in the mouth. Now, there's also some salivary lipases, but they just mix with the food. They don't do anything until they're activated later. The amylase is the only one that starts in the mouth. The parotid glands beside the ear, submandibular below the mandible. The submandibular glands, the duct opens up at the base of your tongue, right beside the lingual frenulum. These are the glands that you use to gleek, and if you don't know what gleeking is, Google it. It's about squirting saliva from the submandibular glands. The parotid ducts open into the vestibule up by your upper molars. If you massage the side of your face, you can feel the saliva coming through those glands. The sublingual opens all under the tongue. It has a number of ducts, and it really floods the floor of the mouth with saliva. So they're kind of found here. Parotid glands being probably the biggest ones. So there's the, it's mostly water. It can be up to 99% water. It's slightly acidic, and we're going to find that a lot of secretions of the body are acidic because bacteria don't grow very well in an acid environment, so it helps cleanse things. There are various electrolytes, mostly sodium, potassium, bicarbonate, and phosphates, some chlorine, but it's basically the same as most body fluids. There's amylase that breaks down the starches, and there's a lipase that that is for breaking down fats, but the fat breakdown doesn't happen until later in the stomach. So it's really the lipase is in an inactive form. There's mucin, which is the protein in mucus that's secreted. So that's what makes saliva have its kind of its slimy, slippery characteristic. There are some metabolic wastes, specifically urea is found there. It's not a big way of getting rid of metabolic waste, but some of it happens, which is one of the reasons they can test various things using saliva. There's antibodies, there's lysozymes, there's defensins, there's cyanide compounds. So they're kind of natural antibiotics. Now humans don't take they have a lot of these things compared to other animals. Other animals don't have hands, and so they carry things in their mouths. They have far bigger defenses in their saliva. The ones that have the most are actually the crocodilians, the alligators and crocodiles, and that's because they eat rotted flesh, and so they have the most. But it also explains why dogs and cats lick wounds, because they're putting these defense mechanisms from their saliva into the wound. We naturally do it too. If you cut yourself, you get a paper cut or something, you tend to stick it in your mouth because it puts these natural antibiotics into the opening, into the cut. Salivation is controlled by parasympathetic nerves, and but they're not the vagus nerves. So it's cranial nerves 7 and 9 that do it. 7 and 9 are the facial nerves and the glossopharyngeal nerves, which makes sense. The parotids are facial, the sublingual or glossopharyngeal. But it's parasympathetic. Anytime you have a sympathetic stimulation, your mouth goes dry because salivation is stopped. Remember, parasympathetic is rest and digest. First step of digestion is salivation. Now, another accessory organ are the teeth. Now, teeth, I mean, there's whole professions devoted to teeth. When I've taught in the dental hygiene program, we did a lot more of this. When the NURS program, we'll do a lot more of it. For you guys, you just basically need to know that there's a couple of different types of teeth. There's the baby teeth, which are called the deciduous teeth, that the roots get reabsorbed and they fall out. And then there's the permanent teeth. So all of the permanent teeth come out except for the wisdom teeth, which are the last ones to come out. They may not come out until you're in your 20s, maybe if even then. We'll talk about them a little bit more, but there's a nice x-ray of deciduous teeth being chased by the permanent teeth out. Something I would like you to see by looking at this x-ray, this is what x-rays look like. As a matter of fact, this x-ray is so good that it ends up in a textbook. X-rays are notoriously hard to read. It takes a lot of kind of interpretation to see what the hell's going on here. So the teeth are obviously not all the same. The front teeth are called the incisors. They are for cutting. They're kind of chisel shaped. The canines are the fang teeth. They're the ones that those of you who like vampire movies will know very well. We all tend to have them. Um, a lot of times in cosmetic dentistry, they're reduced slightly, but so we have a pair of canines in the top and in the bottom. There are bicuspids that are sometimes called the premolars that are there for crushing and grinding, and then there's the molars. And the dentition formula is this, that in each quarter of the jaw, of each jaw, we have 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 bicuspid, and 3 tricuspid. So 2 premolars and 3 molars. So that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 32. We kind of number them left and right, lower and upper. Baby teeth, the deciduous teeth, we don't have as many. We have 2 incisors, a canine, and first and second molars on each side. We don't get the premolars or anything like that. So we have 20, 5, 10, 15, 20 in the quarters. They are written like this: 2I, 1C, 2M, or 2I, 1C, 2PM, 3M. That's the shorthand for each quarter of the jaw. I'm not going to worry about the different parts of the teeth beyond the fact that they are held in place by ligaments. The joint is called a gum fossus. The gums are called the gingiva. They are kind of cemented in place by something called cementin. Dentin is under the enamel. They're hollow. There's a cavity. There's a nerve that runs in that root. The root extends down into the jaw, forms the gum fossus, and there's a canal through the center of it, the root canal. Please do not spend much time at this, but basically the enamel only covers the exposed part, the root doesn't. Right? That dentin is what they're made out of.